everybody to a brand new episode of the Cute Games Club, the show where you can learn something interesting and new about cute games history, design, and culture. I'm your host, Terry Ross, and today I'm doing another interview, which I'm so excited to get to do with Anthony Cloudy, the creator of Drag & Drop, which is an upcoming game that's going to be released on Steam. And are there any other places it's going to be released on?
Yeah, so we're still sorting out the details, but it's definitely going to be on mobile.
Oh.
And then I think we should be good for Xbox and Switch. Haven't applied to Sony yet. Just gotta find a connection first.
Okay, so you're hitting all the stops. I love that. That's obviously really exciting. That means you can pick it up basically wherever games are sold. This is awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Anthony. We were talking about this before, we really got into the show, but Anthony is in Japan and I am in Boston. So we're both a little bit sleepy because I'm about to go to sleep and he literally just woke up. So it's going to be a pretty loopy interview, but I'm certain we're going to get a lot of gems out of it. So I'm really excited to dive in. Anthony, as a fellow cute games creator and lover, everyone is dying to know, including myself, what have you been playing lately? What is inspiring you in the game space?
Oh my gosh. So the most latest was the Pikmin 4 demo.
Yes, that just dropped.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. During the pandemic, I finally went through and replayed a lot of games that I just hadn't finished, from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had obviously Pikmin 1 because and the best part about Pikmin 1 was that I as a small child just freaked out about the time limit like that. It was going through all those save files was great. But I also played Pikmin 2 as well, and then Pikmin 3. And big fan of Pikmin 2 and the dungeons and all the stuff they did underground, and the way that game felt. So really enjoying the return to form for Pikmin 4.
Yeah, I think this is one that as soon as it was kind of announced, people were super duper excited to get more news about it and for the release and everything. Pikmin is one of those games that as leader of the Cute Game Club, it's probably one of those that's I'm supposed to have played it, and I just never got around to it, and I was kind of locked out because of the I just never had the consoles on which they were released. But now Pikmin 4 is out, and they're also re-releasing on Switch. I think it's 1 and 2 or 2 and 3.
It's 1 and 2.
1 and 2. So yeah, I'm basically going to be able to just knock them all out one fell swoop, and I'm very excited to jump into it because they're so fucking adorable, and everything about that is I'm majorly stoked.
Yeah, all you gotta say is just when you play number 2, if you have a really bad time with the Empress Bullbacks, please note that there is a support group out there for you.
Okay, thank you for the warning.
No, it's just a big old worm boss, and I just remember as a kid, that thing it has a rolling attack, and it just squished half my army in one go, and it's just oh.
Nope. That sounds that's gonna be a tough one. All right, well, actually, I'm glad that you kind of forewarned me, so I can beef up. I can kind of prep for that encounter.
Yeah. That one was just young age traumatizing.
It's so true. I have a very similar experience with actually just talking about replaying old games when I was a kid. It was Kirby and the Magic Mirror. It was just today my favorite game. Yes. And as a child could never beat the final boss, and I was deeply traumatic, and it would stress me out, and I could never finish it. And I played it again as an adult, and I just the ease with which I did it was such a it was such a satisfying, I'm an adult now. I am strong enough for Kirby.
Yeah.
It was great. And I love that you had that for Pikmin as well. Well, speaking of Kirby and sort of how it inspired your game, we haven't even talked about the game that you made, which is Drag & Drop. And I would love for you to kind of explain to people what it is, and how you kind of came to want to make this game? Like, how did it come to you? Where were you like, all right, next game I'm going to make, it's cute dragons and they're fighting?
Yeah, there's actually a lot here. So starting off,
Yeah.
Drag and Drop is a couch multiplayer game where players play as a cute little. They're called Pico dragons, like the race of dragons. Um, it's because they are all actually IRL 3 centimeters tall. They're really.
Is that canon? Canonically?
It's canon. It's canon. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, back to the actual like description of the game. Yeah. You are on a grid of blocks. Your goal is to walk around and stay on the grid of blocks as long as you can and knock other players off. By pushing the A button, you breathe fire, and that drops the line of blocks in front of you. And so the goal is to drop the dragons and not get dropped. Yeah, so giving more of like the background. So I had previously gotten my master's in like game development at Southern Methodist University's Guildhall.
Okay.
And so at that time, I had like for my like final project thesis, I had gone and created something that was actually like kind of similar to Kirby Air Ride City Trial, but trying to be like a top-down twin-stick shooter, way more like focused on competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I built this all in like my own engine, because that whole program was about building your own engine from start to finish. And
Well,
so,
okay.
crazy shit.
I mean, if you can build an engine, what can't you do, though? You know?
Yeah. So I made this game in my own engine, and obviously, like, that wasn't going to get ported anywhere. So I'd been wanting to remake it in Unity so that way I could have something that I could kind of get a more finished experience, and then make sure that it actually would be able to be playable on other platforms.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was kind of burned out from a lot of the just kind of like day-to-day BS that I had to do at my job, and like I really wanted that creative energy back.
Sure.
But I wanted to start with something that was smaller, because like All-Star was, way too fresh. Like I literally just built this game, and then, like the motivation of like having to rebuild the entire game, the last game that you built, having a little bit of distance is gonna help a lot.
Absolutely.
So I was kind of looking for something to get my mojo back, so to speak. And with my having to put All-Star aside, it literally was. I actually just had the opportunity to, right around when like people are starting to like be allowed to gather in small groups during the pandemic, like just a couple months in, that was like more of that time. I was able to hang out with some friends, and we played Kirby 64 and played Checkerboard Chase. And it was kind of that, where I was just like, oh, well, this is exactly the size and scope of something that I'm looking for. It's a game design idea, like a seed that has been untouched for 20 years. Awesome core game mechanics, really solid, easy to pick up and play, and just had a lot of growth potential. And so I was like, all right, well, let's go with it. Do this, dust myself back off, and get back into things.
Yeah.
At this point, it was just me alone, so obviously, like, was able to like throw together a Unity prototype of like what I was looking for, just getting some of the like basic gameplay done. And so I had a artist on Twitter that I'd been following, who hadn't worked on a game before, but they were really good at drawing like dragons, creatures, critters, all sorts of stuff. They had like just the exact kind of art style that I was looking for. And so I cold DM'd them on Twitter, and I was like, hey, I'm looking for doing this project. It'll be paid. I'm just self-funding it. But I knew that if I really wanted to like hook, line, and sinker, like land my artist, I was like, the game's gonna be called Drag and Drop, and I want you to draw dragons for it. Like I tried to make them an offer that they couldn't refuse.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
So it was like it's only called Drag and Drop because I really wanted this artist to do it. Ahmed Green, and they were like, okay, well, I'll think about it. And then I think it was about a day or two later, they came back with not only like the actual like I actually had imagined like bigger dragons initially,
Uh-huh.
but then they also came back with not only like what I'd had in mind without even asking for it, but then they also came back with the Pico dragon design. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, they're smaller, so like this solves the design problem of being able to see more of the board. They're super cute. Like this is it. Like this is this is it right here.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I love how you've assembled your team and kind of your ethos. And I mean, I actually have to remark on how unusual it is because most of the time it's either a group of people who have never made a game before but really want to make one, like kind of all get their foot in the door at once. And it can be a little bit chaotic, having been on a couple of those teams in my past. It can be a little chaotic, but there's a lot of passion there, obviously. And then you get that team of like industry veterans, like a very marketable team, of course, with like a really exciting idea. But then, of course, it's sort of impenetrable to get on that team. So you really don't see, that many kind of like a mix of like newcomers and old timers. I mean, obviously you're not an old timer, but like, you know what I mean? Like people who've been in it for a little bit and kind of know the ropes, which is a great mix, I think.
No, I completely agree. There's very much like that kind of like once you're in the industry, you're in the industry, and then you can get the jobs. And breaking in is really hard, and just
Ooh,
there's
speak on it.
not enough. Oh yeah, 100%.
Preach.
It's like there's not enough opportunity for a lot of people, right? You know, like before working on Drag and Drop, like the musician Fots and Green, like were people that I'm like, they already were like ridiculously talented, and just nobody had ever given them an opportunity, right? And even now, like they're getting more opportunities, even though like Drag and Drop is still like pretty small and stuff, right? And it's just this kind of like I want everyone to be able to have the opportunities, like the sort of opportunities that I've been able to have to, so to speak, make or break it, right? And again, like when you look at Drag and Drop, like you don't feel like there's any sort of like, whoa, this is like a really like amateur thrown together like hobbyist project. Like it still feels professional, but with like the fresh breath of like indie air.
Yes,
right?
no, it's very clearly like a strong, clean, but also clearly indie title. You've definitely hit it perfectly there. Just for my own curiosity, since you mentioned kind of the aspect of like a design problem and sort of longer dragons, were they taking up more than one space on the board, or what was going on there with the original pitch?
I just imagined just like kind of like twice as tall of dragon, right?
Oh, I
Which,
see.
would have been
Okay.
closer to like if you look at the original Checkerboard Chase, Kirby is the ideal character for Checkerboard Chase because you have the most like visibility of the board
Yeah.
behind Kirby, right? It's something like King Dedede, where King Dedede is like technically like from a design standpoint is like taking up way more board space, right?
Yes.
So visually, like they're obscuring more of the board.
Since we're on the subject of, I mean, we've already brought it up that it was inspired by Checkerboard Chase, and it was, you were saying it's like the perfect seed to be developed into a full game. And I have not played the game myself, so like I said, this is something I don't know, and I guess most people probably wouldn't know having just seen the trailer. But like, how did you expand what was a mini game into like a full release, like something that's you could play it potentially multiple times or over like an entire single play session?
So definitely one of the big things is that mechanically, the two games play very differently. Kirby 64 is very much about like not like grid-based movement, but way more like fixed. There's no ability to fall off on your own. You have to get trapped. Adding that agency in Drag and Drop adds way more depth and actually like competitive surface area for the game. There's techniques that you can do peaking, right, is what I like to call it, where you can like technically wherever you're like breathing your dragon breath from is calculated by like the very center of your character. So like you can like risk falling off to kind of get over onto a hole that you shouldn't be and fire on a line that you're not on by risking, your stability.
I see.
Right? And so you just have a lot more interesting play just from that. Now talking about like the actual bigger, like, what are the how do you grow this from just a awesome core game mechanic seed into something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So most people would be like, hey, where's the items, where's the random events and stuff like that. I'm taking a little bit of a slower approach towards this because I want to be able to create way more like just bigger quantity of content than I would be able to by hand programming in all of these items one at a time quickly, right?
Okay.
So instead of just tacking on a bunch of features, I'm focusing on these little systems to be able to grow even more. There's something that I think that as a huge Smash Brothers fan, I think there's something that the game actually like almost does and doesn't deliver on. At the end of every single game, right? Like Smash Bros is recording all of this telemetry on like how far you walked, what number of falls you had, like all of like the little details that you generally just mash the start button and get past, right?
Yeah.
But it's recording all of this stuff. And the only way that you can play Smash Brothers, it is all about the KOs. But I played a bunch with some designer friends of mine back in Seattle, and they would always like try and make crazy little game modes where it's like, all right, we're gonna go to the Mario Kart map, and we're gonna play as kids crossing the road, and you can't jump, and you're just trying to, when the Shy Guys come, cross the road without getting hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they would create all these little like sort of minigame experiences in it, and the thing is that Smash has like all that telemetry to be able to actually start like judging you and like scoring you on different things,
Right.
but they never did, right? And so with Drag and Drop, for game modes, I've been focusing on, well, I have to get all this telemetry to figure out like your achievements, right? How far have you walked, all that stuff. But instead of just like leaving that and throwing it away, I've been focusing on, how can I make a like data-driven game mode system where I can say, all right, kills get you nothing this match. You get 0 points for knocking out another player. In fact, I take away points if you knock out another player, and I'm going to give you points every single time that you take a step, right? Suddenly the entire game and the entire gameplay has changed, and Drag and Drop stops being just a game and then becomes a like toy box for like this baseline experience that then you can build other games inside of and just little mini games off of that.
Gotcha.
And so I mean, the answer is we're gonna make it more of a party game. You're gonna have items, you're gonna have little random events, you'll have extra stage hazards, but like what actually gets you points in the game, whatever is the goal of the game, trying to make that instead of a set like 3 things that I designed for, trying to make it way more fluid and being like, well, I want to make a game mode like we have rap battle where it's like you literally are only getting points by pushing the taunt button and just like just make it as much noise
Rap battle. I love it.
right? Yeah, right. And if you like smooch another player, like you steal like a couple other points, right? But it completely changes the way that players play and interface with the game.
I think that's going to be really fun, and I mean, to a certain extent, I think a lot of, I will say a lot of, not specifically the Kirby 64 minigames, but a lot of minigames that I guess like we're familiar with, maybe it's just like the algorithm in me, but like personally I've seen like a lot of just sort of reimaginings of like Pong, where you play with gravity, you play with size and things like that, or a reimagining of like tic-tac-toe or checkers or chess. Like people are just like really fucking with a base game. And so I'm excited to see more of that, not just from you, but like I think it's going to be something that we'll see a lot more of coming up. Well, now since we are in, this is actually perfect because we're kind of going into like the deep like game devy, game designy type of stuff, and I specifically wanted to know these 2 questions. I'll ask the first one first, but it's, what are the unique challenges about developing a co-op game? Because I feel like most indie developers are much more comfortable with like a single player game because it's so much easier to sort of like test and iron out the kinks. And I feel like it's a very different beast to do multiplayer games. And I would love you to share, if you can, any insight about that experience.
I'll talk about a couple of different things. One is that obviously starting from a like a game seed like this, where it's like, all right, well, somebody has already gone and proven that this game concept at its core is fun. They've,
Yeah.
If I'm making a first-person shooter, right, there have been so many people who have tried and failed things before me, and I can look at all of their examples and figure out, like, what are the things that I want to do,
Right.
right? I personally like more experimental, just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I'm way more inclined to go back to, like, GameCube, Dreamcast kind of era.
No, there was some prime beef in that era. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, obviously, like, I'm going to just the obligatory call out of standing on the shoulders of giants, right? You learn from other people's mistakes. You learn from what happens. I think that there's a good way to think about some things. Try and see if there's a couple of use cases that you can think of in your game where it's like, if in this specific scenario, I want this effect, and I'm going to tune things so that this specific outcome happens. So, to give you an example, if two dragons are right next to each other and they both push the A button, both of those players should die. Neither of us should be able to escape that, right? We both decided to push the nuclear option, and we're both gonna, get knocked out.
Gotcha.
And so when you think of a scenario like that, you then can start tuning your like actual like gameplay values around that. So that helps me figure out like, okay, how long is the hits done after the attack animation, right? How long are you, in that state and can't move? And so I think that it's easier to kind of, in some of those cases, design from like the outside in, or like the end result, right? What is the experience that you want from that point? And then you go and once you've built that and made that, like that thing true, you then play test that and figure out, okay, is that creating the experience that I want? Is that, like what are the other adjustments that I need to make associated with that? And then that gives you at least the skeleton to start having like, okay, well, I tried that and hey, just getting one tap sucks, right? What can I do about that as a designer? What can I do about that from a balancing standpoint? And I think going with those sorts of assumptions, I think makes that balancing a lot easier. Another thing that I want to mention about multiplayer games, as I mentioned before, I'm a big Smash Brothers player. Not like super good or anything, right? I get tournament jitters way too bad. I don't compete. But something that is really important to multiplayer games, and it's going to sound a little weird, disrespect. 100%, you have to be able to disrespect other players.
You know what? You're right. You are right.
Yeah. So you'll look at drag and drop, and you will be like, wait, your game's about like making little like meeping noises and like you can kiss other players. Like, how is that disrespectful? That all came from the idea of, as a player, I want to be able to like taunt and disrespect my opponent, right? I want to be able to do silly little things that are like haha, like I got you.
Yeah.
Because so much of the fun of multiplayer is the feeling of like, in that safe environment, being able to kind of like, one up your bud.
You
right?
are so right. And like I'm actually getting very excited about this because it's almost like absolutely. It's very true that like multiplayer games are about like they're just not exciting unless you can mess with each other, but it's also equally important that like it's enough spice to get things kind of exciting, but not too much that people start like punching each other, and which is like totally a possibility if you're like not really careful. And I'm like, is this genre just like S&M game? Like what do we I mean, if you think about it, it's like, right? Like you do the punishment and then the aftercare a little bit. Like this is shit. I will never not be able to unsee this now that you pointed it out.
Yeah, I mean, I do really think that it's important to have that, right? Because there's very few opportunities in our regular life where you're able to genuinely mess with other people in your life, right? But I think that's why like these sorts of games are really important for building bonds between other people.
Yes.
The kinds of friendships that you make over multiplayer games, couch multiplayer, for me specifically, it's more of like a friendship deepener kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
100%. Yeah, like we only ever we only ever like taunt our best friends. Like we only ever feel brave enough to do that, I think, with people we're really close to. Yeah. Yeah, I see it.
And it's because you know that there's the love there.
Yeah.
Right? And that it's done out of love, that you can tease each other. And I think that that's something that's really important, that games provide a space for that. And so for me, that's why I think about, disrespect based design, right? I try and think
Yeah.
about ways that I can, for like Drag and Drop being a cute game, I focused on cute ways to tease and disrespect other players. The smooch, which again started as a taunt, all that it does is basically kind of just takes those players like out of the game just for a single animation, and then like at that point I just didn't do anything to like update their collision or like their physics. Like they don't fall, they just kind of like hang there.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly it became this really intense strategy where players are like, okay, well, I now can, because I can smooch and I can stun somebody, right? If somebody's like trying to come back and there's a, like they're trying to get off a block and it's about to drop, I can go over and give them a kiss and then, get them to force them to stay there while the block drops. Once they're out of the animation, they just drop, right? And like, that is now a tactic.
The kiss
right?
of death.
That's now
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, we even have an achievement for it, I think, called like Black Widow or something like that. Those sort of things, like you will stumble across, and you gotta be open to it, right? You have to have your heart open for it, and accept that like sometimes fun things are gonna fall into your lap, and you gotta be willing to find like space for them, even if it's not what you designed for initially. That's a thing that we added as a joke, and then the game showed us and the playtesting showed us that like this is huge, you should keep this, you should roll with it. And so I try my best to focus on like what are things that are going to give players meaningful interaction and depth while still like bringing joy and delight.
This is a free podcast, people don't have to pay any money to listen to this, and we're giving them gold nuggets here. This is great. So the next question that I wanted to ask, and this is again more of a game development question, I would like to know kind of what goes into creating and balancing CPU characters for a co-op game. Again, it's a very different beast from single player, where it's like they don't really need to be that smart when, you're maybe like a single person and you're kind of achieving some other goal, and really these guys are just like obstacles for you. But when it's like in a co-op game, the entire point is to go up against an opponent who can occasionally outsmart you and do things that like present a challenge. And so writing, I feel like a player controller for that is, at least to me, seems fucking crazy difficult. So if we could talk about what that's like, I think a lot of people would be, myself included, would be very interested to know.
Absolutely. So first things first, every single time that I ever talk about game AI, I have to send this video. This is a GTC talk by Kimberly Vole. She gave this talk in 2015. This is probably the most important talk that I've ever seen about game AI, because it really focuses on something that I don't think is very often talked about. But she goes through and talks about how the most important thing about game AI is that players will go and fill in stories based on what they see characters do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give this really good like personal example from my thesis All-Star. I wanted to add some like light enemies for color. Right. And unfortunately, what happened was that I put these enemies in, and they could fire and turn right. That's all that they did, was they just kept turning right and fired the gun. Mm-hmm. Great. I just didn't have time for anything else. I just got to the point where I could put an enemy in, but they didn't do anything. Right. Players in playtesting would not stop telling me about how good my AI was. They would tell me about like, oh man, I also loved the other ships. Like he shot me from off screen, and I came in and like we had a little dogfight, and they would go on and on. For me, it's like I didn't even code an AI, right?
Right.
And this is the most important part of this talk that I mentioned. Players are going to go and as long as an AI acts in a way that a player can build a story about it, mentally, they're going to be able to like respond way more positively to that AI. And game AI is like, games are already all about smoke and mirrors anyway, right? But game AI especially is about smoke and mirrors. It's all about just giving enough stuff that people can start making assumptions and filling in the gaps. They'll rationalize like, oh, he attacked me, right?
Yeah.
You know, like this AI attacked me. It deliberately went for me.
Yeah.
I was gonna move and it cut me off and did this, right? So it's like those sort of opportunities for emergent narrative are like that's really what you want to try and focus on when you're making an AI for a game. So with all of that being said, that's like my number one thing that I like to get across first, because it's super important. I think that's just kind of a foundation. For drag and drop, so right now the AI completely sucks, and it's because I spent all my time working on the system and then not actually being able to like go and finish like using the system.
Right.
But I created a system that basically uses a series of goals, and at any point in time, the dragon is checking whether or not the goal can be used in the situation, and then its priority. The problem is that they don't have any actual like sense of strategy right now, because I've been mostly focused on like how do they perform the things that they need to do, but they don't know like what a better position is on the board. They're just as likely to walk towards the outside of the board onto like a peninsula and, you know, effectively like get into like a suicidal risky position, even when there's like a better like safer option that they could have walked towards.
Yeah.
And this is actually like the kind of the next step, is that now once we have this like set of like basic goals, if you can write an AI that plays your game, it's very easy to make. You can make it something that's like really hard to play against, and then you can intentionally make it make bad, and that's how you make an easier AI, right? So basically, it can every single time correctly identify like, oh, this is the perfect block for me to walk to, and then based on like the actual AI difficulty level that you set, you can say, because you're a level 1 CPU, I need you to roll the die, and you only have a 10% chance of doing the right thing. Otherwise, I want you to do a stupid move. And so with this weight system, you can then play around with those priorities and skew how the AI performs based on the actual like values that you gave it.
Okay. Well, then that's pretty much the last of like I think the super deep like game developing type of stuff. But I know you wanted to talk about this, and so do I. Tell us about the party at the end of every round of Drag and Drop, which I just want to know. I think everybody wants to know, like, how did you come up with the most brilliant game design idea in all of history?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. That's flattering. So I'll actually talk about, I have a little bit of like game design philosophy about this sort of thing. Games, and this is like kind of like a non-negotiable for me. Like I'm not backing down on this point. Good games are whimsical and fun. Good games are surprising. They have little bits of love that the developers put into them. And I think that it's something that we saw a lot more back when before like the current business sociopath like influx that we have.
Sure, yeah.
Where people were allowed to get way more hands-on with their projects.
Yeah.
In a way that allowed them to put love into the game that you can't quantify with a user story right now. Again, this is all my personal opinion, but there's nothing more like exciting for a player who attempts to do something in a game and the game reacts in a way that they like would have wanted or didn't expect, but like surprises them in like a pleasant way.
Yeah.
Right. Like at some point we might be adding cursors, kind of like Smash gloves to like the drag and drop like character select menu. And if we do that, players are going to absolutely want to pet the dragons. Right?
Yes.
And the first time that a player goes and like moves their hand, wiggles their hand over the dragon, if we code and support an animation that lets you pet that dragon, that is like immediately like huge win for that player. Player is shocked, surprised, like infatuated with like the cuteness.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a real like joy. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is like it's the interaction that you didn't expect would work. There wasn't a business reason to put it in there.
You actively went out of your way to add this in, and it's something that some people might not even see.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. And so when we talk about the party room, and it literally was just kind of something that I had thought of just on my own, and I just was like, oh, I think it'd be kind of cool if the results screen you could actually do something on. And I was like, well, what if we just threw a little like party for the winner and everyone got to celebrate? And so you starting from there, I then thought about like, well, what are interactions that I would want to do in this room? One of those things was obviously trashing the party, right? So like it's great to be able to like, you know, if I can just set up this whole party and like I can just walk over and knock over shit and make a big fucking mess. That's awesome. That's great.
Yes.
Like players will love it. It reacts in a way. And the best part about that room is that like nobody tells you that that's a thing that you can do. You kind of have to figure out that that's possible. I specifically made it so that the bots only spin in place on that map so that the likelihood of them going and knocking anything over on their own is very low.
Mm.
And it's these things that you can easily miss in a game that give that extra delight, right? The feeling of like, oh, we went out of our way to do this.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm not here to say that like you should greenlight every single weird idea on your project, because that just leads to scope creep, right? If every single time that somebody on your team says, wouldn't it be cool, and you're just like, yes, like you'll just never have a finished product, right? But I think that if you find spaces where you can create that environment, so like for us, like, you know, we wanted to have something that was big and different with the party room. I mean, this is the game where you can play the results screen. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's already a cute game, so it's just kind of it's just sort of set up for that. Just the aspect of the fact that it like is a party. I mean, you were talking about this before, sort of like emergent narrative. I mean, I don't think, it doesn't seem like you planned for it to be like they're all friends and one of them is throwing a party and they're all invited. But like just because of like the fun, silly, whimsical end screen in your head, you automatically build that story. And it just makes it so much cuter that it's like, oh, they're friends. Oh, there's cake. You know, somebody made a cake for the winner. Like it's
exactly.
It's great. Yeah.
And you're completely right. Like that's the story that you tell from it and that you observe from it. For me, the actual like party was more of solving from a narrative standpoint. The only thing I was trying to solve was that like making it very clear that like the dragons aren't dying when they get dropped. Like,
no dragons were harmed in the making of this game.
Yeah, no dragons were harmed in the making of this game. And that everyone has a good time, and that I wanted to be very clear that it's like it's not that like the loser lost and the winner won. It's that you all get to partake in the party. Like everyone had a good match. You know, winner happened to win. He gets he or she gets the colors, you know, like all over the room, right? They get those colors, but it's like everyone's there for the party. Everyone's invited, right? So for me, it was more of like trying to solve the how do I make a results screen a more positive, friendly, and fun for everyone experience.
Yeah, it's cuteness all the way, and we're fully in support, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll mention, because this is something that you probably don't know, because if you haven't had a chance to play, there's an important shitpost about the party room, which we made as the hardest part of the game, which is the apples on the back shelf.
Okay.
Me and my sound designer, I can't remember who specifically came up with it. I'm pretty sure it was him. Yeah, he was just like, hey, it'd be really funny if you put something that was like out of reach such that like almost nobody could reach it, but it's like still possible to get. And I was like, oh hell yeah, like, I'm gonna go put these apples up on a shelf, and that became like the hardest thing to do in the game. Like, out of every single thing in the game, there is no developer intended way to do this. Like, it's something that I can't really tell people when they're playtesting, because they will then spend the next 30 minutes like just trying to get this thing. They will just go for it. You completely derail everything because they're just like, I want that apple.
Yeah. Right. Damn. There's going to be a speedrun apple percent for sure on this game.
I want it so bad. Actually, we did see a streamer once, one of the guys who was streaming it, literally, like, I just watched him, like, it was like 5 seconds he got it.
Oh, nice.
5 seconds from like start. It was crazy. You know, and it's just.
Did he mean to,
you know,
or was
like,
it just like an accident?
I mean, he intended to go for the apples.
Oh, okay, but he.
Right. It's just not a consistent setup or anything. Right?
I see. Okay, gotcha.
He just got really lucky, got everything in the right place, clipped up on top of something, and then was able to like get up there pretty quick, right? So it's like, you know, it's just one of those things that, like, you know, it was specifically added to create that kind of like ridiculous challenge. That again is like completely optional, right? Like,
oh, totally.
The only thing is that you get an apple hat from it once you eat it. It's
oh,
called
hell yeah.
the Big Heist.
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Um,
I mean, you're
and once
you're
we
kind
finally
of
have,
in a way turning the game. You're going from the competitive mode to what becomes like a cooperative mode because everyone's working together to try
yes.
to figure out how to get that apple, which I think is really cute and funny.
Hmm.
Well, Drag and Drop is currently in early access, as you mentioned before. What's kind of the next steps before we kind of wrap everything and you guys put out a final release?
Yeah. So early access for us has mostly just been so that us as a development team can focus on moving slowly, focusing on doing the right things for the game, and not having to feel like we're rushing something out to market. The thing that's going to move us from alpha to beta is going to be online and networked play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that shit's hard, so please
Yeah,
bear with us. We've been waiting on it
I'll believe
forever.
that.
Yeah, but we're doing what we can.
It seems like, even though it's in early access, and I think a lot of people have the expectation of early access being not really ready to play. Some developers kind of jump the gun a little bit on it, but from what it looks like, if you just want to sit down and play a game co-op with some people locally, this game is ready to do that right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Hell yeah.
Again, I'm of the mindset of always, 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 if you can, under promise, over deliver. So for me and the team to continue to be able to learn, make mistakes, learn from those mistakes, I think it's most important that we have that kind of label and understanding, so that we're not given, the same kind of pressure that a lot of other people give. Pretty unfairly, of just why isn't everything perfect right now, right?
Yeah.
Which is just way too much pressure.
Yeah, no, it's enormous. It's enormous.
But yeah, game is completely playable, right?
That's great.
It's 100% a steal at $5.
Oh yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. No. Let's put on our salesman hat right now. Like, it's $5 now. I don't know if it's going to grow, but there's definitely more content coming. There's more stuff coming that will only make the game better. So yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer, folks. Get it for your friends.
Yeah.
Let's move some units.
Yeah. No. Love it. We're targeting hopefully like a $20 or $30 game by the end. I'm still taking the Masahiro Sakurai approach of it should be way more value than that, and players should feel like they're getting a steal.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make something that's really deeply good and valuable.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, at this price right now, even I think honestly, even if you're on the fence about something like this, I think $5 is perfect for taking a risk on just a weird game if you don't know what you like or what you don't like. And if you
no,
yeah. So this is awesome. I'm glad that this is basically already a full game, and it will only get more full.
it really is.
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? I've pretty much asked all of my questions, and I've gotten great answers so far. So, this is your time. If there was something that you really wanted to mention, or you thought of it while you were talking, but you just wanted to circle back to it, by all means, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Honestly, I gotta talk about almost everything that I wanted to today.
Oh, that's great.
Especially cute driven game design or whatever. Right, it's just not the kind of conversation that you could have in a AAA studio where it's we got to make this thing cute, and where's the numbers that show that cute is good, or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, that's a part of me is okay, slight tangent, part of me is really excited that indies have essentially proven cute games and wholesome games and that whole thing that is valid and people want it and it's great. But there's also a part 100%. Of me that dreads the AAA industry is now being oh, these make money, so now we're gonna make them, and just sort of I'm sure they're gonna be great quality, but I'm also oh, I really don't want the spirit of these really good quality games to suddenly get diluted by just something like Disney Dreamlight Valley, which is Animal Crossing, except it's a bunch of microtransactions, and it's
yeah, exactly,
it's just soul crushing.
It is. Yeah, 100%. No, and I think that we just kind of have to be prepared that that's gonna happen. But I think that what's gonna ultimately show out is that people who love games are going to probably continue to play more and more indie games, because indie games are kind of the only people who really get it at this point. And for people who hate money like me, right? Where it's just like I'm not here to, I could totally do some sort of like crazy gotcha thing, right? We already have 100 plus Pico dragons, but it's like I don't want to create those sorts of, if I don't have to, I'd rather make a game that feels like you just found a really cool GameCube game, and then you're just pop that shit in and you're playing it. That's
Absolutely.
what I think games should feel like, and I really pine for that era, and I'm hoping that even if it means that, like, we're not going to make the optimal amount of money, like, as long as we make a living, that's what I care about, right?
Yeah.
I just want to be able to.
That's the dream.
Make some sort of
isn't
little
it?
safe space.
Yeah.
in the
That
tumultuous
is the dream.
AC. Yeah. And then as far as plugs, I gotta plug my good buddy Jam to Go. He is making a game called Kitten Burst. This guy is probably the single most like super insanely talented. Been doing this for years and is still criminally underrated. Oh my god, please go check it out. It's really cute.
Absolutely. Now we will post all of this in the video. This is really great stuff.
It's quality. It's really good.
It's great. Okay, so Drag and Drop is in early access on Steam. I think it's also available on itch.io. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so there's 2 ways to get it. Would you say would you get a little bit more of that on itch.io? I think that's usually the case, but I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do. And then if you hop into I think you should be able to get like a Steam key for free if you buy it there. So it's technically the best place to buy it for us.
Okay. Well, there you guys go. Then you get the insider secret there. It's $5.
Yeah.
It's kind of a no-brainer. If you love cute games, if you enjoyed the Kirby 64 minigame at all, or if you just want something chill to play with your friends, if you want to smooch dragons and have a little birthday party, this is the game for you.
Yeah.
Oh, and where can people find you? Do you post stuff on socials at all?
Yeah, I'm still pretty bad at it. The place that I'm most active on is Drag and Drop Discord. If you ever hop into that.
Oh, you guys have a Discord. Okay, that's great.
Yeah. That's the easiest place to like keep pulse and like see what I'm doing and stuff. I do have a Twitter. I just am very bad at posting things on social media. Because I'm generally too busy being
I'm
like,
totally with you, honestly. You know what's the only time I ever use Twitter is when I contact people asking to interview them.
Yes. Same. Oh my gosh, same. Yeah.
Twitter.com _sunken_city_ or if you want to see the drag and drop Cloudy Games LLC, it's twitter.com Cloudy Games LLC. And I will put those links in the description for anybody who wants to check them out. Also, probably links to just about everything that we talked about here. Well, thank you, Anthony, so much for taking the time to sit down and have an interview with me. I had so much fun in this conversation, just talking about cute games and game design ideas and stuff, which I love talking to developers because it's like, I mean, not only do I geek about this stuff like on a personal level, but like there's just so much like interesting gems there that you would not know if you didn't ask. And I think people need to ask more cute games creators, obviously. That's kind of what I'm doing. But more people should do it anyway. So thank you for sitting down and answering the questions so people can kind of learn about the process.
I should be thanking you. It was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Oh, that makes me so happy to hear. Alrighty, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you guys so much for listening to this, and once again, please check out Anthony's game. It's fucking awesome. And we'll see you guys next time. Get the fuck out of here. That wasn't to you, that was to the audience.
Hey, bring that back. Bring it back.